Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 11 of A Drum Corps Fan's Guide to the World. I'm your host, David Vaughn. Very pleasant good day to you all, wherever you may be. Today, we are going to be recapping yesterday's Masters of the Summer Music Games from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We're going to be doing a score recap on the DCI Birmingham show in Trussville, Alabama, and a recap on the Music on the Mountain at Sheffield, Pennsylvania as well. We had a first for the season yesterday that we will talk about a little bit later in the episode, but we're just going to go ahead and jump right in right now. The first corps to perform at the Murfreesboro, Tennessee show were Music City, and it was a home show for them. Being out of Nashville, their show entitled "Violent Delights" arose in its thorn. I had a couple of interesting realizations yesterday. There's such an interesting juxtaposition in the opener entitled By Any Other Name, and then The Rite of Spring. And if you're familiar at all with The Rite of Spring, it's kind of this, jerky, like violent, almost kind of piece, but kind of comes in over this really, really nice piece. But, talking about, the birth of the bloom of a rose, and it worked really well, this juxtaposition. And normally when you take two pieces that are so diametrically opposite, it doesn't work. This worked pretty well. And so I just kind of caught that finally after seeing the show, I don't know how many times now. Flugelhorn and the duet in the second movement, they're having some fairly substantial issues. And almost to the point where it makes me wonder if they were having some health issues, the flugelhorn player, because it was kind of throughout the show with this particular featured soloist. There's a really nice tenor feature following the contra feature there in the second movement. That was really good. As I watched them perform this corps yesterday, I couldn't help but wonder if the nerves of performing in front of their home crowd were getting to them a little bit. It wasn't their strongest performance yesterday, and it had been a minute since I'd seen them, and it wasn't as strong as some of their other performances. And I get that. I see that. It was, it's a pretty young group for them. No, I can't see. Trying to cut down on the glare from the glasses, but the option is I can't see my notes, so I'm just going to have spots on my face. But no, it had been a while since I'd seen them, but this was not as strong as some of their earlier performances in the season. They had a nice expanded mallet feature leading into the ballad. It was really good. I still love the brass septet to start the ballad, and the whole concept of everyone kind of exiting the field and leaving the soloists, or rather the small ensemble, by themselves, really framing them. And I feel like they did that very effectively, and I like that a lot with this corps in particular, with this movement. They do need to watch out for the tuning in the softer passages of the ballad. They need to remember that softer tones don't necessarily mean, or don't at all mean, a lack of support. And what happened was, like, they were cutting down on the breast support, and it was making it fall flat. The battery feature in the closer just wasn't lining up at all either. The color guard in the closer, though, was really, really clean. It was a very crisp end to an enjoyable show. I do enjoy the show, and I did enjoy it again last night. There were just some issues that had crept up that I hadn't seen up to this point. I don't think they're going to be issues. Like I said, I'm going to chalk most of that up to one. So I have a friend that was at the show last night. He said it was extremely hot. Plus, it was Music City's home show. And so you've got those added nerves on top of that. They did get a very warm reception from the crowd, and that probably amped them up a little bit more and maybe led to some more miscues that they wouldn't normally have. The next quarter performed were the Blue Stars in their show In Absentia. The stage for their show just gets set so beautifully throughout the introduction. It's just very, very well done as they go all throughout, all throughout the intro heading into the openers. It's just nice. They do need to watch the tempo on the middle brass and those running 16th notes in the second movement. And then that timing that we've talked about all season long with the contra V and the color guard inside of it. Uh, this time it was the front left flag, and there were some issues with it. And that timing has now been suspect for quite some time. Remember, I mentioned for a while that spot I thought was missing. Maybe they'd taken it out for safety reasons. Apparently, it was someone that was out for an injury or a prolonged illness, one of the two, because they were back last night. But there were some pretty substantial timing issues, and I worry about it. I worry about it now because I'm afraid someone's going to get hurt. I want to give some credit to the saber performer in this show who tosses the saber at the top of the slide and catches it at the bottom of the slide without missing a single beat. It's pretty incredible, and I don't think I've ever seen her miss. And I just want to give a quick shout out right there. And again, I feel like I say it every single time. The euphonium solo in the ballad is just beautiful. It's just fantastically done. Something that I really do like about this show is there's not a wasted second in this show. The transitions are smooth. There's no dead time in between. It's just a steady, free-flowing show. Now, of course, there are ebbs and flows within the show, but there's no dead time. Like, there's no stagnancy at all, and I like it. The bass feature in the fourth movement didn't quite hit tonight. It has hit in the past, so I'm not terribly worried about it. A very nice drill execution in the closer to finish out the show. This was the drill execution that I missed the other day when they had at first added this kind of appendage to the end of the show. I'm not going to call it a tag. I called it a tag the other day. It's really not. But they kind of added this addition to the end of their show, and I missed it because for whatever reason, Flow Marching was stuck on a prop. And we didn't get to see the drill. Well, I finally got to see the drill. It looked really good. It looked really good, so I like that. The next quarter performed were the Cadets, and their show entitled Atlas Rising. And again, their introductory statement to the show with the expressive ritenuto in the battery leading to the initial brass grab is just fantastic. It's absolutely great. We got to make sure that the trumpet solo leading into the first ballad is supporting the air so that we don't have cracks and insecurities in the sound or waverings in intonation. We had a little bit of both last night, really for the first time. So, so that's hard. It's hard to gauge, okay, was something wrong? Was there, an issue with the horn? Was the performer not feeling well? You know what? It's always hard to tell that. Something that I've not talked about up to this point is the visual at the end of the second ballad, where the color guard have all these kind of curved rods that they stack on top of the person representing Atlas. And he throws them off, signifying overcoming his punishment. And then heading from that directly into the ending of the show, of course, that ridiculous trumpet feature, but all the way through. There are so many strong shows this year, and I just don't know how to place them all, but I really, really like this show. This show, for me, is up there as far as one of my personal favorites for the season. I love the Cadet show this year. And I love the new ending with the color guard member climbing the rifles. You've got color guard people holding rifles like steps, and you've got a color guard member climbing these rifles, signifying taking the steps up to Mount Olympus. And it's pretty stick and sweet, and I really liked it a lot. And that was cool. And I don't know how long they've been doing that. This is the first time that I caught it, and I really, really liked it. So it was cool. It's like I said, it's one of my personal favorite shows this season. I like it. The next quarter performed with Carolina Crown in their show entitled The Round Table Echoes of Camelot. The French horn soloist was in absolutely terrific form to start it out yesterday. It was just absolutely terrific. They had some phasing issues in the second movement. It was not bad. It was enough to be noticeable, and then they pulled it back in. But I hadn't really noticed that up to this point. So, again, if you're a Crown fan, Crown alum, don't worry about it. unless it continues happening. There's such a powerful ballad. It really is a powerful ballad with the storyline of Guinevere betraying Lancelot. There's a lot going on. It's good stuff. It's a great ballad. The technical passage for them didn't line up, but the other aspects of the show were so strong that it really didn't seem to affect just a ton. And it didn't matter just a ton. It will matter when you get into like prelims and semifinals and finals. Those little things will make big differences. But right now, it doesn't matter. They added a chorus singing Dido's lament after the brass trio perform it, or quartet rather perform it, and so that was pretty sweet. That was new. The show just continues to get better and better as it goes on, and it's a fun show. I really like it. And I really appreciate what they're doing with it. The next quarter performed were Phantom Regiment and their show entitled Exogenesis. Their drill is still absolutely immaculate. I promise you, if you've not seen Phantom Regiment's drill in the last week and a half, you need to watch one of their shows. They look like a human Pieware program. It's immaculate, their drill. Their opener is just punch you in the mouth big. It's just yeah, we're here. We're in your face. And you can tell they're really enjoying themselves out there, which is so important. And I've mentioned it a few times with different cores. These guys really do. They look like they're just enjoying themselves so much. Yesterday was one of the first times that I really just allowed myself to just sit back and watch their show. And it really is an enjoyable show. I like it. Getting past, but I'll discuss it here in a minute. The battery feature at the end of the second movement is slick. The one going into the ballad, it's just slick. And then the Rachmaninoff, so good. It's just so good. And then they have that huge build at the end of the Rachmaninoff, which is so effective. What I noticed just is the crowd is much more receptive to the core than they were earlier in the season, and I think people are starting to get used to the new regiment. And that was what I was going to say earlier was I'm getting used to the new regiment. And so I'm able to put preconceptions aside and just enjoy the show for what it is. But no, it was very well done. Good job by Phantom Regiment last night. Next quarter performed were the Boston Crusaders and their show entitled White Whale. This core does such a good job of making themselves look huge. They look massive. They look like there's 300 of them out there. The low brass, and I've talked about this before. So the low brass to battery to upper brass mini feature that like hands off from one to the other that I've kind of chided a little bit this season as not making sense, really. It makes sense to me now. And I don't know if it was a change in part writing or if it was a change in execution or what, but now it all fits together. And I saw it last night. I'm like, okay, I see this now. I get this. I get where this is coming from. And so, like I said, I don't know if it's just a tweak in some part writing. I don't know what, but it landed. It landed last night, and I saw it. I'm like, okay, there we go. Now I get that. Now I see where that fits in the concept of the show. Mellophones had some intonation issues at the end of the second movement, which is odd. Wellerman was good like it always is. The jig had some issues after Wellerman. Not quite as bad as at the start of the season, but they did have a few issues last night that were kind of concerning. We'll see, today in Atlanta, tomorrow in Winston-Salem, do those issues continue? Right now, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think it was a one-off. The flugelhorn solo in both the ballad and the opener were terrific. I failed to acknowledge it, but when I heard the second one, I'm like, okay, I got to talk about this. The flugelhorn solo is great. This is terrific. The technical passage in the closer hit very well. One of the trumpets missed their spot and then kept moving after the hold in the closer. And I've talked about this before. If you miss your spot, especially on a hold, just miss your spot. Just miss it. Okay. Don't draw more attention to it by moving. And that's what happened there. Overall, really solid show. The next corps to perform, actually the final corps to compete were the Blue Devils, and their show entitled The Cutouts. The color guard issue, they had color guard issues all over the place to start. Highly unusual for the group. They were having drops, their flags were all over the place. They were just having issues last night. And then they got out of the opener and they got to the second movement, and like everything across the board, like the whole corps was just crisp and clean. And the more I watched that show, the more I enjoy it in every aspect. And then you've got the shift from the almost spastic ending of the second movement with the shifting, the cutting out of vocals to the ballad is just interesting and so effective. It's so good, and it really kind of makes you just look. And if it there's it's I guess spastic really is kind of the best way that I can think to describe it. The front ensemble needs to be careful not to speed that up coming into the trombone trumpet duet in the ballad. But then the battery feature coming out of the ballad is just ridiculous. It's just insane. This is insane. I've talked about it before. The Blue Devils are finals ready right now. You know, they are. And if they don't improve another 1/10 of a point the rest of the season, they're top 6 right now. If they don't improve another 1/10 of a point the rest of the way. The Blue Coats performed next in their show entitled The Garden of Love. They performed in exhibition. They had a standstill show due to excessive illness. I did not commentate their show just because it's hard to know. You know, like Cascades the other day did a standstill show. They did their entire show. Cavaliers did a standstill show. They did not do their show. And so they did other songs. And so, you know, it's hard to know. So I did not commentate on theirs. They're the Blue Coats. They're going to be fine. So my rankings for this show. I had outstanding brass going to Carolina Crown. I had outstanding percussion going to Boston. I had outstanding color guard going to Blue Devils, and I had outstanding general effect also going to Boston. And then I had in 7th place Music City, 6th place Blue Stars, 5th place Cadets, 4th place Phantom Regiment, 3rd place Carolina Crown, 2nd place Boston Crusaders, and 1st place as Blue Devils. And then the results kind of bore that out. The DCI results, they had 7th place with a score of 77.15 as Music City. They had 6th place with a score of 85.95, the Blue Stars. They had 5th place with a score of 88.30, the Cadets. They had 4th place with a score of 88.70 as Phantom Regiment. They had 3rd place with a score of 91.70 as Carolina Crown. They had 2nd place with a score of 92.05, Boston Crusaders. So that 2nd to 3rd place battle is getting pretty tight. And then 1st place with a score of 92.90 were the Blue Devils. So those were the results from the Masters of the Summer Music Game show in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The DCI Birmingham show in Trussville, Alabama was also last night. That show was not broadcast on Flow Marching. So all we have on that one were results. In that one, 8th place with a score of 69.70 were Seattle Cascades. 7th place with a score of 79.65 were Spirit of Atlanta. 6th place with a score of 81.70 were Blue Knights. 5th place with a score of 81.75 were Pacific Crest, so just 5/100ths of a point there. 4th place with a score of 81.90 were Crossmen. So Crossmen have now jumped both Blue Knights and Pacific Crest to creep into the top 12, which is bad news for both Pacific Crest and Blue Knights. And then we had a second place tie between the Troopers and Colts with 85.35. And that battle has been tight all season long, and now it's getting even tighter. I think it was in San Antonio, they were separated by 13 thousandths of a point. Well, now they're not even separated by that. So this is going to be a really, really interesting battle moving forward. And then first place at the show with a score of 87.20 were the Cavaliers. And then there was one other show scheduled for yesterday, and that was Music on the Mountain in Sheffield, Pennsylvania, but that show was canceled due to inclement weather. And that was the first show of the season that has been canceled by weather. We've had some that were delayed, we've had some otherwise, but that was the first show that has been outright canceled due to weather. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do my power rankings for the week. And we're going to start at the bottom of world class and work our way up. I didn't think that this show was going to be this quick, so I wasn't actually planning on doing my power rankings until tomorrow, but I'm going to go ahead and knock those out today. So right now, as it sits, Seattle Cascades are in 21st in world class. They may be in danger of missing semifinals. Actually, I'm going to do a little bit of looking here and see where the open class cores. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so right now, as it sits right now, Seattle Cascades are 25th. So right now, Seattle Cascades would be in the semifinals. With their average of their last three being 68.408. They are making ground up in a hurry on Genesis, who are sitting 24th. And their average over the last three is 72.4. Jersey Surf are making a little bit of noise, y'all. And they're at 23rd with an average of 73.517. Blue Devils B are 22nd, and there's some question if Blue Devils B are actually going to go to Indianapolis for finals week. If they do not, then Golden Empire currently sits in the 25th slot, and there's a wide gap after them, so there's nobody really going to catch them. Blue Devils B are sitting 22nd with a score of 74.167. Southwind are sitting 21st with an average of 75.133. Music City are currently 20th with an average of 76.30. Spirit of Atlanta are 19th with an average of 77.75. The Academy are 18th with an average of 77.829. And then Madison Scouts are 17th with an average of 78.675. Gold are 16th right now with an average of 783 rather. Spartans are 15th and their average over the last three is 80.65. Spartans are making some serious separation between them and the rest of the open class field. Pacific Crest right now are sitting 14th with an average of 80.90 over the last three shows. Blue Knights are 13th with an average of 81.075. Now we get into the top 12. Crossmen are 12th with an average of 81.45. Troopers are 11th with an average of 84.083. Colts are 10th with an average of 84.233. Blue Stars are 9th with an average of 85.80. Cavaliers are 8th with an average of 85.821. Mandarins are 7th with an average of 87.808. And then your top six, as they sit right now, you have Phantom Regiment in 6th with an average of 88.075. Knocking right on the doorstep of the Cadets, who are 5th with an average of 88.150, so just 7/100ths of a point separating them. Blue Coats are 4th with an average of 89.917. Boston Crusaders are 3rd with an average of 92.10. Carolina Crown are 2nd with an average of 92.117. So Boston Crusaders are 17 thousandths of a point behind Carolina Crown right now. So that's going to be a battle for silver and bronze right there. It's going to be tight. And then Blue Devils are sitting in first with a fairly comfortable margin, 92.867. So there's your top 25 right now. Going now from 26th on down, you've got Golden Empire sitting at 26 with an average of 67.850. And should Blue Devils B not travel to Indianapolis, they would be the next core up to make semifinals. Impulse are 27th with an average of 64.50. Guardians are 28th with an average of 63.942. Vessel are 29th with an average of 63.583. Raiders are 30th with an average of 63.10. River City Rhythm are 31st with an average of 62.783. The Battalion are 32nd with an average of 61.217. Les Stentors are 33rd with an average of 61.0. Colt Cadets are 34th with an average of 59.35, and they have inched ahead of 7th Regiment, who are 35th with an average of 58.70. Blue Devils C are currently 36th with an average of 58.483, and Heat Wave rounded out with an average of 56.567. So that is currently where the power rankings sit for this week. There is a week and a half left, y'all, and we are at finals. And the open class finals are closer than that. They're 10 days away. And so we are right on the doorstep of the end of this season already. What a journey this has already been. I want to thank all of you for listening to today's episode of A Drum Corps Fan's Guide to the World. I want to invite you to please take a minute to subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications button. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button below. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of the broadcast. If you don't like what you're hearing, also leave me a comment. I do try to respond to every single comment that I receive. So just a reminder that no amount of success can compensate for failure in the home. Make sure that your family knows each and every day just how much you love them. And remember, this is just a Drum Corps Fan's Guide to the World. We're living in it.